You want to delegate authority, and the question is, to what degree do you delegate authority, and how do you keep coherence? How do you delegate authority while keeping coherence?
You're listening to Traction Heroes, digging in to get results with Harry Max and Jorge Arango.
Hey, Harry, it's good to see you again.
Hey, Jorge. Man, I love those glasses. I used to hate those glasses. Now I love those glasses. I don't know what changed.
Thank you first. And thank you for admitting you used to hate them. I'll say this. They are complicated when you're recording video. It means that I have to put my computer into dark mode, which I hate. I hate having my computer in dark mode. But if I don't do that, then all you see are like very bright reflections.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, I didn't really hate them before. I didn't groove with them. But I don't know why. Maybe it's the dark background. Maybe it's I just get to see I know if I see those glasses, I'm getting to see your lovely face, and we're going to have an interesting conversation. But either way, I've grown fond of them.
Well, you might not be. You might not like me so much after today's reading.
I doubt that. All right, man. Now I'm bracing myself.
No, it's okay. I will precede this by saying two things. One is, it's a longer passage than I normally read,
Okay.
so bear with me. And the other thing is that this book is written by the leader of a large company.
Okay.
And the name of the company comes up a couple of times in the passage.
Mhm.
And for the sake of keeping the suspense that we normally have with these things, I'm going to obfuscate things by saying company name rather than the actual company name.
Okay.
You ready for it?
Yeah, or you could use the Wile E. Coyote Acme.
Acme. That's better. Let's do that. Okay.
All right.
For all the millennia of human existence, life was miserable. Nearly everyone was born into poverty, lived in poverty, and died young. As recently as 200 years ago, 90% of the world's population lived in extreme poverty. But then something remarkable began to happen. Life started to get better and better for more and more people. The flat line representing average well-being became a hockey stick, suddenly and sharply improving, and it has not stopped. Today, less than 10% of people live in extreme poverty, even though the world's population is now almost 8 times what it was 200 years ago. What happened? In short, certain societies haltingly but increasingly began to move from top down, where a few people controlled the many, to bottom up, where more and more people enjoyed greater opportunity to live as they saw fit, although it has been an uneven process that remains incomplete. They were more fully able to apply their abilities and knowledge to better their lives and the lives of others. A top-down approach presumes those in control know what's best for everyone else. Those at the top typically seek power, rely on one-size-fits-all approaches, and use detailed rules and coercion that stifle others. No matter how well-intentioned, a top-down approach only benefits those at the top. A bottom-up approach respects the inherent worth of each person and unleashes creativity, initiative, and talent. When behavior is governed by this principle, the outcome exceeds what anyone could have planned or predicted. Everyone benefits when behavior is mostly governed by general principles rather than detailed rules, freeing individuals to use their gifts and knowledge to tackle problems and pursue opportunities. This approach does not mean decentralizing all decisions or equally distributing authorities. Leaders should only make decisions for which they have the demonstrated capability, while seeking and using the input and challenge of others who can improve those decisions. For example, a facility manager is most likely in the best position to make decisions that affect the whole facility. With a bottom-up approach, the manager seeks and uses the input and challenge of those who have relevant knowledge. However, with a top-down approach, managers simply impose those decisions, which undermines the culture and leads to worse results. they are guilty of, quote, the fatal conceit, end quote. Bottom up does not mean employees are free to do whatever they feel like. We strive to create the conditions where employees are motivated to do what is beneficial for Acme and themselves. The responsibility of every supervisor is to enable their employees to understand how and be motivated to maximize value in harmony with our principle-based framework. This bottom-up approach benefits everyone: employees, Acme, and society.
I love the reading. I can't help but wonder if it's torn out of the HP way or something, but I'm super curious to hear where it came from.
This is from a relatively new book. It came out, I think, a couple of months ago. And it's called Becoming a Principle-Driven Leader.
Really?
41 Principles to Build an Enduring Business. And it's written by the father and son team of Charles and Chase Koch.
No way. That's super surprising.
Yes, Charles Koch of Koch Industries, right? And now I think you see why I replaced the word Koch with Acme, because that would have been the clear giveaway.
Right.
Charles in particular has been writing about this idea of principle-based leadership for a long time. I know that he has a book prior to this one, which is on my reading queue, about principle-driven leadership. This one just kind of leapt at me in an airport bookshop, and I picked it up and literally read it over a flight because I found it very compelling. And the reason I wanted to bring it to our conversation is because I've always been very drawn to this notion of there being two approaches to managing a situation, a group of people, a system. One approach you can think of as like top down, and the other is bottom up, right? And I think it might become evident from our conversations that I tend to favor the bottom up approach. I mean, we talked in a previous episode about Gall's law, right? And I think that systems that evolve to meet the conditions that the system is operating in tend to perform better than systems that have been designed, from the get-go to satisfy some kind of set of hypotheticals.
Yeah.
What I read is from the book's appendix, like the book, as it says in the subtitle, it has 41 principles that they use to manage or lead Koch Industries. And there's an appendix that has descriptions of all 41 of the principles. And the principle that I read is called bottom up versus top down. But this is one of, like the title says, 41 that form a kind of like constellation of principles that all kind of cohere. And they lead to a particular way of approaching leadership and management that articulates a particular way of being, right? So I'll stop there and see if you have any reactions, and if you still like me as a friend.
Well, no, I mean, yes. I mean, I still like you as a friend, and I'm surprised and delighted. I really appreciate alternative points of view. And many things came up as you were, as you were reading it. I had one orientation, and when you told me who it was from, I had a nearly bimodal, like off the spectrum, other side reaction to it. But I think putting those two things together caused me. So, you finished the book? Let me just start with that. Have you finished it?
Yeah, I finished it on the flight. Like I bought it in the airport, and the next flight I literally I read the thing.
The first thing that came to mind was I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said something, and I'm going to butcher this and paraphrase statement terribly. Is I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. You know, I realize I really know nothing about those people. I've been who they are, their personal brand, what they stand for in the world. I am a victim of social media and the popular press. I know nothing about them. I've done no research whatsoever into who they are, what they've done, how they think, and yet I find myself, negatively biased toward anything they would have to say, just based on what I've heard about them. And of course, now I'm delighted to have that worldview challenged. Number one. And I appreciate the opportunity, as we've discussed in the past, to have my worldview, put in front of me as a worldview, something that may contain, a bunch of uncritically held beliefs about things that I think are true that may not be based in fact at all. And I may be slightly less victim to the echo chamber of social media and large media, but I am by no means anywhere near immune to that. And this is an example of, wow, now I'm confronted with something I'm hearing that that grates on things that I thought I knew. So I'm curious. It really opens up the curiosity lens for me. When something hits me that far off, I want my response as a leader to be, tell me more.
I can appreciate that, and I know that that someone might have, and that's why I prefaced it by saying, it's like, I don't know if you're my friend in New York, is it? Because I know that that Charles Koch in particular is seen by a lot of people, let's say kind of left of center, as maybe there's like this libertarian caricature, right? Like this person is like wanting this kind of libertarian society or whatever. I think that if you can put that aside, if you can put that mental image aside, and maybe we should for the rest of this conversation and focus on the ideas rather, you might find that the work is compelling and cohesive, and I would dare say practical, particularly for someone leading an organization.
Mm-hmm.
The key idea here is that rather than tell people what to do, you would be better off instilling in them a set of principles and then giving them leeway to respond to things as they come up, right? And the reason why I chose that principle out of the 41 is I think that this one is fundamental to this worldview, this notion that you can lead bottom up or you can lead top down.
Mm-hmm.
Leading top down, as this passage that I read said explicitly, implies that the people calling the shots know everything about the conditions that they're deciding on.
Mm-hmm.
And in a large, complex organization, these are complex adaptive systems, it's unlikely that the people at the top are going to have a good sense for what's going on the ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to delegate authority, and the question is, to what degree do you delegate authority, and how do you keep coherence? How do you delegate authority while keeping coherence?
Mm-hmm.
I took the primary thesis of this book, and I expect that this is true of the other ones as well, that the way that you do that is by instilling a set of principles. It's leading almost by creating a particular culture rather than through coercion. It's like, you do this or you'll be fired, right? It's more, this is how we do things here. And you take it from there, right? So you're creating it's like you're writing the operating system that will allow the thing to evolve and grow while maintaining coherence, which I think is the tough thing about designing systems that grow bottom up. It's like, how do you keep it from metastasizing and becoming something that is different from what it started out as?
Runs amok.
It runs amok. And I'll say this, like after you recommended it, I have started reading Eric Ries's new book.
Yeah.
Which I've just started, so I don't know enough to say this with any degree of certainty, but I suspect that what he's pointing at is something like this. It's like, how do you start the system going with the cultural conditions that will allow it to evolve in such a way that it doesn't turn into something that betrays itself or ends up compromising what you started it for.
It does sort of prompt me to wonder, however, where the guiding constraints are, and does that mean that the principles are empowering the cultural operating model, but the direction of the organization is fundamentally still top down based on its vision and its mission and its goals?
They talk about it in this passage that I read, right? Let me see, where does it say? This approach does not mean decentralizing all decisions or equally distributing authorities. Leaders should only make decisions for which they have the demonstrated capability, while seeking and using the input and challenge of others who can improve those decisions. And I think, and again, I don't want to speak for them, and I can't cite the book because I haven't memorized it, obviously, but I think that they would say that that part of their remit as leaders is to define what those principles are, but also, given the nature of this particular set of principles, I would expect that would give the organization enough leeway to allow new principles to surface and to adopt those if they make sense within the whole, right? So it's the notion that you're setting the direction, and this is something that we've touched on in other conversations, I feel, like this notion of the, navigating by using a compass. Mm-hmm. And the difference between understanding where you want to go at a high level versus what the next steps you need to take based on conditions you find on the ground. Mm-hmm. That's obviously something that you can do when it's you doing the navigating and you doing the walking. But when you have a very large organization, you have to find a way of balancing hierarchy, which has to be there, with flexibility. Mm-hmm. Which is implied by this approach, right? But I would venture that the responsibility of leaders in an organization like that is to be the kind of keepers of the culture, mm-hmm. and to help establish what those principles are. It's certainly a much more important function of leadership than it would be in an organization that is much more kind of by the book.
Well, and speaking of buying the book, I'm going to add it to my list. I am curious, do they address two things? Number one, the difference or distinction between values and principles? And number two, do they spell out how to develop a good principle? Like, what's the difference between a good principle and a bad principle?
It's been now about 6 weeks since I read this, and I don't remember exactly. I don't think I can answer those questions and do justice to the book.
Okay.
I suspect that the answer to the second question is more of a question for the previous book, and I forget what that's called. I'll look it up and I'll add it to the show notes. Yeah. But there's a previous book, like I said, that talks about principle-driven leadership, and I suspect that might be more of the territory that book covers. This one is more about these particular principles.
That's cool. I'll check it out. And have you read Ray Dalio's book?
I have read Ray Dalio's book.
How would you compare and contrast these?
Both come from a similar impulse. The idea that you want to manage by principles. I found the principles in the Koch book. Well, let me proceed everything I'm about to say by saying I read Dalio's book a long time ago when it came out. I think it's a decade old at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that one is less fresh in my memory. But I remember it striking me as being very prescriptive. And it also made a distinction between principles, like personal principles and principles for work. So it made the argument that you need to operate by principles, whether you're talking about your life or your business or what have you. And I don't know, I don't remember if I read this in the book or if I read it in reading about Dalio, but I know that the way that those principles were applied in his organization ended up being kind of weird. Like they had this very weird culture where like all meetings are recorded, and which was not the case 10 years ago, right? Like that's become the norm after the pandemic. The Koch book, you might disagree with some of the principles. I found them compelling. I found that they hung together as a whole. I can see how they could grow an organization to the size that they've grown based on these principles. I also, like, as I was reading it, I was suspecting it's like there might be more to it than just principles, right? I published my reading notes on this book, so I can link those in the show notes. But in the reading notes, I also said that one criticism I had of the book was that it felt like they copped to a lot of mistakes they made in the book, right? So it's like we made a lot of errors, and when we erred, it was because we did not follow our principles. But I felt like in a lot of the cases that they cited, they kind of deflected the blame to like the people they had hired to manage the business, which felt a little, I don't know, like it's like really, yeah. But I found this book to be more relatable and applicable than the Dalio book. The Dalio book also felt more theoretical. This one, again, it might be because it's fresher in my memory, but it had a lot more stories from the actual growth of this company. And it's very frank about the mistakes they made. As I was saying, like regardless of who the blame gets pinned on, right? They do give examples of times when they did not meet their standards and what happened. And it does make for a compelling case for leading an organization or a team through this principle-based approach, which there's a technical term, right? Like subsidiarity.
Oh, I never heard that. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, it's the idea is that you delegate decision-making to the people closest to the effects of that decision, right?
Sure. Very Boydian.
Very Boydian. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And again, we talked about feedback, right? It's like you want that feedback loop to be very tight. Well, if you're going to, well, first of all, I completely buy that and abide by that approach. And I think that if you're going to buy that approach, it behooves you to consider how the whole is going to hang together. And this book provides a compelling answer in the form of principles.
The person that I think of when I think of somebody who did this really well is actually Matthew Milan. Do you know Matthew?
I do know Matthew.
And I had the great fortune of working with him in Normative a few years ago, and you know, they shared with me the values they had developed, and the way they had articulated those values was they were really spelled out more as principles than values, which is why I had asked that question earlier. It'd be fascinating if we ever managed to get the guest. It'd be fascinating to talk to Matthew.
Yeah, for sure. Matthew is actually the one who introduced me to John Boyd's work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so totally applicable. You know, I'm looking up in the book right now. I don't remember if values is one of the principles, but certainly they do talk about navigating by their values. Anyway, yeah. that distinction is worth digging into, and maybe we do a separate conversation on values, and we'll circle back to the distinction between values and principles.
This seems like fruitful territory. I'm definitely going to pick up a copy of this and read it. I super appreciate you bringing it to my attention and to our attention. So I think there are a very wide range of readers who wouldn't have picked it up just based on who the authors are, and I think that would have been a real disservice.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to keep minds open, right?
Yeah. All right, man. We should let you go.
Thank you for entertaining my eccentricities, Harry.
All right. Let's all go work for Acme.
All right. Take care.